Happy Monday, traders, and welcome to a new week in markets. End of last week on Friday, there was a bit of action in the US. We had some top-tier US economic data. The first print is that we had the PCE inflation data for December, which is the Fed's preferred inflation gauge. Now, for the headline number, year on year, market expected that to come out at 2.8%. It came out marginally above expectations at 2.9%. For the core number, market expecting that to come out at 2.9, actually came out at 3%, so marginally higher. So both the headline and the core numbers are going the wrong way. They're going away from 2%. So that matters for basically, Fed rate cuts. The market is still expecting the Fed to cut rates potentially 2 times this year, but certainly when you do get, hot data like this, it certainly is going to push that back. So at the moment, it looks as if the market, the first live meeting for the Fed now may be in June, where it looks like it's a coin flip of whether or not the Fed will cut. Anyway, we also did have some more economic data. That was US GDP, fourth quarter GDP. Market was expecting that to come in around about 3%, which is a lot lower than what it was in the third quarter, which is around 4.4%. That came out well below expectations at 1.4%. So not good at all, but a lot of that was blamed on the US government shutdown. But in any case, so we had one data print that was hot, one that was soft. So at the end of the day, we didn't really see much change in US bond yields or in the US dollar. So choppy trading on the back of those economic data prints, pretty much one cancelling out the other. But look, the big news that we did get in the US was the fact that the Supreme Court finally made a decision on Trump's tariffs, and that came out that his tariffs are illegal and they weren't implemented constitutionally. So that's a big deal because obviously tariffs are Trump's biggest policy. He used those to make a lot of trade deals obviously favourable to the US with a lot of countries, and then also obviously it's a huge revenue raiser for the US. So obviously Trump did not like that news. He did find a way very quickly legally to reimpose some global tariffs, but only for 150 days, so for about 6 months. And he initially imposed those just a uniform rate for every country globally of 10%. But he did come back an hour later, thought no, that was too low, so he jacked that up immediately to 15%. So that's where we stand now. So every country globally has a 15% tariff for at least the next 150 days. Look, some countries obviously had tariffs previously lower than 15%, like Australia, which had a 10% tariff. So this weekend, it's a 5% increase on what they had previously. But obviously some countries had tariffs above 15%, so going down to 15%, they're winners. So look, some winners, some losers. But the big question on this tariff policy now is what happens with all the money that was taken previously when the tariffs the Supreme Court has ruled as illegal. Does the US have to give that money back? That would obviously be a big deal. So those questions remain. There is a lot of uncertainty. This is all just obviously fresh. Look, markets generally don't, they like certainty, they don't like uncertainty. So for markets, I'd imagine that this is probably a touch negative, but I can't see any sort of big moves on the back of this at the moment. But a fluid situation. Okay, so this week in markets, it is a pretty quiet week, not a lot on the agenda. Monday is a holiday in Japan, but Tuesday we do get Chinese markets back after their Chinese New Year holidays, so they reopen. For precious metals, that's going to be a big deal. Obviously, Chinese have been, and Asia's been a big buyer, big support for precious metals and gold. End of last week, gold did finish, close the week at 5,100. That is a new record weekly close for gold. So setting records end of last week. Buying dips for precious metals have been working exceptionally well and very profitable. We are in a raging bull market, so I'd imagine that will continue. Wednesday, locally here in Australia, we've got some inflation data that is going to be super important. The simple reason is that they recently had to raise rates because inflation was pushing back up to 4%. We recently had employment numbers last week. They were exceptionally solid, came in at 4.1%. Which basically means that yes, the RBA can raise again if inflation continues higher. So the Aussie market certainly is going to watch those numbers very closely. And then really this week is all about what is going to happen with US and Iran. We should find out whether or not they go to war. Trump last week basically said that he's going to make a decision in 10 days, so that pretty much takes us to the end of this week. We do know that there is a final diplomacy window open where by Tuesday, so not a lot of time left, that Iran has got to give the US a detailed written proposal of what sort of deal that they're happy to make, and if the US accepts that, there's potentially going to be another meeting, US-Iran in Geneva, so talks and diplomacy, last ditch, but needs by Tuesday for them to actually come with some sort of good proposal. In any case, the market seems to think that the war is certainly is going to happen. If you have a look all over social media, that's pretty much the take of most pundits. So oil, obviously crude, is the market to watch. So it had a fantastic week last week, pushing up towards $67. These levels that are capped at since August of last year. Breaking that, certainly can see that a lot higher. Obviously gold's another market that's going to do exceptionally well if this does kick off. And then I'd imagine equities are going to be hit by risk-off trading, and we could see those a lot lower. So this could be a very volatile week and a very important week for, obviously, if we do go to war, US and Iran. That's going to move markets big time. So good luck, and we will check back in with you shortly.